Hi everyone, my name is Olga. I am the healthy selfishness coach, is what I like to call myself sometimes. It sounds better in Russian than in English. This is the intro video to this new channel. So first of all, welcome. I'm really glad you're here. This might be a good place to start. I'll tell you a little bit about how I could be useful to you, why you might want to subscribe and maybe stay around for a bit longer. And if you are a bit curious about me personally, stay until the end. I will be sharing about myself as well. I know I'm always curious about people, of who they are, where they're coming from, why they're talking about what they're talking about. So I'll be sharing about that as well. So this channel will be all about coaching, emotional intelligence, self-worth, relationships, values, basically everything that comes into a coaching session. I will be talking about this here. There will be probably also some stuff about societies and how they work, more in the sense of the way that societies function, or rather dysfunction, and how that creates and affects the individual struggles that we have. Because a lot of the things that we struggle with, that we feel is, well, that's just my own little struggle, like productivity, for example, or self-care, or, achieving my goals, whatever it is, often it is influenced by how societies are constructed. So this is why I call myself the healthy selfishness coach, because mostly I'm working with women. I want to help women put themselves, their own dreams, passions, interests, well-being, happiness on the top of their priorities list. Not when and if there is any time or energy or money left, but first. My way of doing that is through transformational coaching, but I know there are lots of other people who are doing it through other ways. The feminist community is huge, and the more feminists, the better. I know the word sometimes feels a bit too overused, and it can mean different things to different people, but my meaning is that it gives you the freedom. That's what I want for every woman in the world. And when I say woman, I want to, just a disclaimer, I want it to be inclusive. So I mean anyone who identifies as a woman, or anyone who has the female socializing experience. So if you are a trans woman, or if you are a trans man but you've socialized as a woman, or if you're non-binary but you can relate to any female experiences, you're more than welcome. I hope I might be helpful to you as well. I do want this space to be very inclusive and very safe. And if you're guessing where this bit comes from, well, I worked as an LGBT activist in Russia about 10-12 years ago, before I burnt out. The situation there was rather grave. It was very difficult, very hard politically. But the intersectional feminism stayed with me, and the big picture stayed with me as well. So I don't see issues as separate issues. I see how everything connects to everything. And the sexism that we face as cisgender women is not that different from what targets trans women, or what targets homosexual men, or what targets cisgender men, in the way that toxic masculinity functions. So everything relates to everything. And even the war relates to this as well, because without toxic masculinity, you can't really convince men to go and kill each other. And that's a great idea, and that it's lovely and, heroic or whatnot, that kind of shit. So everything connects to everything for me, and coaching is my way of making the world better. But I do love instant gratification, maybe as some of you do as well. So for me, seeing in 1 hour how someone's life changes there and then, and there's this instant results, instant, that they keep happening after a session. Sometimes you have one coaching session, or like maybe 6 coaching sessions, and then you're still getting the results 6 months later and a year later. You still feel the ripple effects of that. But dropping that stone to start those ripple effects, that's what I love. So yeah, as I said, I burnt out, so I will be talking about burnout as well. I will be talking about energy levels, how we can take care of ourselves. But as I said, a lot of these things relate to one another, and a lot of these things relate to how our societies work. If you are growing up assigned female at birth and you are socialized as a female, you're often taught how there are so many other people you need to consider before you start considering yourself. And that's what I want to challenge, and that's what I want to change for women, and that's why I'm here. I know I can't coach as many women as I can reach through YouTube, so this is why. Now, a little bit about myself, if you are curious, who am I and why do I have this accent that's a bit hard to place? So I'm actually born in the Soviet Union, the country that does not exist anymore. So in that part of it, that is now Russia. So I was born in Leningrad, or now St. Petersburg, and I grew up there and I lived most of my life there. But then I met this guy, he's sitting just there, Daniel, my husband. He's Australian, so whatever my accent is, that's where it comes from. It's kind of somewhat Australian influence over, or very subtle Russian accent. There's more of a Russian accent when I'm angry. We are now in London, or Kingston upon Thames borough of London. This is where we live now, and this is where I've been for the last 5 years or so. We are planning to move to Australia later this year, so the scenery in the videos will be changing. And before we reunited here, we've been in a long-distance relationship for 2.5 years, so survived that. Went through that. There was a lot of things that we learned out of that experience as well, and obviously there is a lot of things we learned out of being in a multicultural relationship as well. So I will be sharing about that here on the channel as well. And what else should you know about me? So I was trained as a linguist. That's my first degree. And I was also trained as a translator or interpreter. And one thing that I took from that, and it's like one of the main things, main principles in my life, is know who your audience is and speak to them. So my German teacher was always saying, you don't just translate from German, you also translate into Russian. So you need to know whether those cultural references that were accessible and available to the German reader would be still available to your Russian reader. And if they're not, then you need to make them accessible. So maybe you want to put a footnote there. So when I'm talking to people, I want to know who am I talking to so that I can be relevant to you, so that I can word my message in a way that would make sense to you, because we're all different. It's not about twisting things. It's not about changing what I'm saying depending on who's in the room. It's about being really present with the person and responding to them and being really human. Because the way I talk to someone from Russia will be different the way I talk to someone from England, because our cultural backgrounds are different. But the way I talk to an older person might be different the way I talk to a younger person. The way I talk to someone who is in the start of their career would be different than the way I talk to someone who is in mid-career or finishing their career or doesn't have a career and is a stay-at-home mom or who knows what else. It's all relative. So context is like my God. I love context. Whenever Daniel's asking me like, oh, how do I say that in Russian? I'm like, what's the context? And I sort of already talked about it, but I love the big picture. I don't believe that issues can be solved on an individual level, that I don't believe that we can tackle anything on its own without relating to everything else. Everything is related. If I'm talking about the war in Ukraine, I'm also talking about the dictatorship in Russia and the very long history of Russian imperialism and all of that, and how that relates to domestic violence and the violent culture and all sorts of things. So everything relates to everything in my head. And I guess that's what I bring into coaching with my clients as well, because I'm listening to what they're saying, but I'm also trying to see how does that relate to what they want to achieve for themselves, to where they want to go, and what's going to happen with all of that. Like, how can I reflect back? So I will be sharing what I know here. I would be sharing what I'm noticing in my work. And again, bringing the big picture in, because sometimes having the big picture helps put things into perspective and see things in a different way. I think that's about it for the intro video. I hope you will be interested in staying over and coming for the next video. I'm aiming to do one video every week. I'm hoping I'll be able to achieve that, but we'll see. And if you don't mind, jump into the comment section, share about yourself, what you'd like to see here, what brought you here. And I would really love to get to know you, and I would really like to make this channel useful to you. So if there's anything in coaching, in making your life better, where you struggle, what you'd like to change, I would be really love to hear your input, to hear where it is that you might want to have a hand, and hopefully I can give a hand to you. So thanks for watching. Click subscribe and like, and I'll see you next week.